This is about reviving our community. So we wanted the commercial property sector to get a good idea as to what happens in the charity world, and we're trying to link the two groups together. Councillor Bassam Mahfouz is a Labour candidate in the Borough of Ealing. He is also an Ealing Labour Cabinet member for safety and genuine affordable homes. Plus, he's got a double hat on today actually. He's the CEO of a Kingston-based charity which is benefiting from rent-free space that complements their own main site that they have in the borough. Jessica Craig is Policy Officer at the Power to Change, which is the social change organisation that strengthens communities through community business. She works on policy development and building relationships with central and local government.
We are a social change organisation that supports community businesses. So those are the sector of business that's locally rooted and locally accountable, and they trade for community benefit. At Power to Change, we know that community businesses strengthen their local communities, and so we're here to back them through all of the changes and challenges that they face. And in my role, I work with local and central government to develop new policy ideas and make the case for how to change to benefit these amazing types of business. Our sort of interest in this area around the broad theme of this session around reviving our communities, and also the specific interest in business rates, stems from the role that we see community business having in the restoration of the vitality of our high streets. So their work really gets right to the heart of that issue of reviving communities. But like many charities, and so community businesses, some of them will be charitable, but they take lots of different legal forms and business models. So you get the likes of sort of community interest companies too. But like charities, one of the major challenges they're facing is access to space to do the great things they do. So our sort of belief around this role for community business in the high street is based around the fact that we've seen the decline of a retail-dominated model of high streets, and we don't think that's coming back. And so we're recognising an opportunity for a more diverse offer with services that are geared to meet local needs and create destination spaces that then increase footfall to other local businesses. And with their sort of deep community roots, community businesses are really well placed to deliver this. So they understand and can deliver on what people want and need in their local area, on their high street, and they also support the local economy by reinvesting their profits locally. A lot of community businesses take on otherwise vacant spaces and bring them back into beneficial community use, which in turn helps make the high street more attractive, more lively. However, a lot of them are facing challenges in accessing affordable space to rent or to buy. A lot of them have ownership aspirations, and when they do, high business rates can be a huge challenge to their business model because a lot of them are operating at low margins. They're really focusing on delivering their offer at an affordable rate, and a lot of them are also active in deprived areas. So in recent years, we've been campaigning to kind of highlight this role of community businesses in transforming high streets and ensure that they can access the space they need to build their businesses. And for us, tackling the exploitation of business rates and this loophole around periods of short reoccupation is a logical way to make more spaces available for communities to use and to ensure that local authorities can collect the income in rates that they need to deliver local services. As has already kind of been introduced, and I think it's up behind me, councils are losing a huge amount of money from these sort of business rates avoidance loopholes. So 250 million in rates collection that's missed every year. And this idea of box shifting, so short periods of reoccupation, is the number one method of business rates avoidance. So we, just at the end of last year, we published this little document. Basically, as a sort of policy-focused person, I'm really interested in how we can influence the next government to make changes that support community businesses. And one of the changes that we suggested in here was that they back this campaign to ban box shifting. And so I'm really pleased that over 100 councillors and MPs in England from across the political spectrum have also backed that campaign. In my role, I went to the party conferences in autumn of last year and heard from both Labour and the Conservatives that they do understand the need for business rates reform, but it is my sort of ardent belief that that is going to come far too slow to help a lot of the organisations that need change now. So notably for us, despite the significant social and economic benefit that community businesses generate, those that are not registered as charities are not eligible for any sort of mandatory business rates relief, even though mainstream businesses in hospitality, retail and leisure, all sectors that community businesses are active in, can access a 75% relief. We do see a lot of community businesses accessing discretionary rates of relief from their local authorities, but with so many councils hitting financial difficulty, a lot of that's being withdrawn quite rapidly. And as I was sort of saying, with the sort of small margins that they operate at, big business rates bills on these spaces that they occupy that are otherwise empty can be, really unaffordable. So again, within this document, another of the big policy changes that we are asking the next government to make is to introduce a 75% business rates relief for community interest companies and community benefit societies, which are among the most common forms of community business. And the reason for sort of choosing those models is that they are asset locked, so you can kind of prevent any sort of exploitation. My final point would be for those sort of contemplating how to use vacant assets, to just think about that, working with the local community and working with community businesses in your area, if you have any, and think about how that can maximise the social value that your space can deliver as well as economic return, because I think they're really great sort of in the middle of generating both social and economic productivity. And I'd be really happy to chat about some of our ideas and our work with you after. But for now, I would like to introduce Bassam, who's going to kind of give that perspective, both from the kind of councillor perspective, as well as someone who's actually running a charity and using a space that you got through ASOP, as I understand.
Great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. And so, as I've been introduced, my name is Bassam Mahfouz. I'm a councillor in Ealing. I'm a cabinet member and have been for over a decade, and covered a number of different portfolios. So everything from environment, but led on finance, which included business rates. And then in terms of supporting businesses in my last portfolio, I'm now responsible for housing. And in May, on the 2nd of May, I'll be standing for the London Assembly for Ealing and Hillingdon. So with that hat on, I think absolutely this challenge I've seen time and time again with, talk about the finances that Jess referred to there, £250 million of lost revenue to local authorities. Just to put that into and over half of that is put down to this specific issue of box shifting. So to put that into a bit of context, that would build you 2,000 new council homes in one of the biggest housing crises facing the country. We could create 150,000 new hospital beds or build 12 secondary schools with that sort of money. And the reality is that local authorities have been facing significant cuts over the past 14 years, and at one point that looked like for every £1 that councils used to get from central government, about 64p in that pound had been cut. So if that is you or I, the sorts of decisions that you'd have to make, if your income was cut by that amount, you'd have to make some really serious decisions about what you could and couldn't afford. And so local authorities are no different. They've had to look at things like dimming lights, closing children's centres, which are obviously critical services for young people, older people's day centres, libraries, introducing additional charges. Now, most of you, wherever you live, anywhere in the country, you'll have heard of some of these, if not all of them, being impacted on your local authority. We're now hearing almost on a week-to-week basis local authorities serving what is in effect a notice of bankruptcy, because they are most of them are on the brink of bankruptcy, if not there pretty much already. And if this continues, it will just get worse. But as I said, I'm standing for the London Assembly myself on the 2nd of May, and we're going to get a quote up in a bit from Leonie, who I'll be hoping to join on the Labour group, who talks about the benefits of banning box shifting and making the legislative changes that are necessary. And the London Assembly recently wrote to the Department for Local Government to ask for those legislative changes to come about. The benefit is that, of course, the obstacle to change is you might know you want to get rid of something because it's awful, but what do you replace it with? Well, the reality is actually Wales and Scotland have already dived in with both feet, and so we've got a couple of templates there that could be taken off the shelf. But do you want to talk about the charity stuff now? Or do you want me to
we can save that for later.
Save that for a bit later.
Thank you.
All right, but I think one of absolutely we touched upon it, and I'll talk about it in a bit more detail. But absolutely, one of these great opportunities through this which is a real win-win-win, is to support the charitable sector with as an alternative, legitimate way of dealing with empty property. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'll come back to that a bit later. So thanks.
Just picking up on some of the quotes, we've had communications with Camden Council. Slightly strong language on their part, but I guess this is their viewpoint. Whilst the practice of box shifting is unquestionably unethical, there is no legal recourse. So it's picking up on the point that they don't like it, but they can't really change it. That's from Camden Council. And it's £10 million alone for that one borough is the impact that thing has had. We've mentioned the £250 million here, the 100 plus councillors and MPs that have acknowledged that something needs to change. If we could have the next slide, please. So these are some of the headlines that are coming out as well. So the public sentiment, I guess post office is everyone's mind at the moment, and then the mass push that's come off the TV programme. So the public sentiment is there. And when you see someone like the Standard picking up on a topic like business rates, it's because they feel it's something that is in people's hearts as well. So that's one of the headlines. Obviously, Barnet Post is not as big a name as the Standard, but they've all got their views as well. Next slide. Bassam mentioned it earlier on. So a member of the London Assembly has said, look, this needs to change. It doesn't matter. It's just got to change. We've got to follow an example. Someone's already doing it. So someone's put in all the hard graft. We should just move on this.